And we wait a few seconds. Actually, now I'm waiting about full 10 seconds instead of 5. Alright, everybody. Hey, guess what? Today is Saturday, September 21st, 2019. I know we're probably a tad bit late, but, well, you know, when the star decides to pull a diva attitude and not show up until a couple minutes late, well, there's nothing we can do, you know? But, well, first things first, I didn't get the audio done, so I'll just verbalize it, but those who are watching on the YouTube can read along with me. Warning, listening to disclaimers by Ed might open awareness of law, might make you realize you're a slave, and might upset your sensibilities. Side effects may include headache from all the information, nausea from realizing you've been duped, temporary blindness from the light bulb turning on, irresistible urge to research family tree, urge to research organic constitution, urge to file your rights in an affidavit. If you receive any of these symptoms, immediately nut up and file or shut up. Keep listening to Ed to grow thicker skin and become free. Ed, why don't you take it away?
Thank you so much. Anyhow, we'd like to thank you all for joining us. It's been interesting the last few weeks with education that's coming out and filings that are going on, and eventually we'll have the filings up for most people to start looking at it. But you got to remember one thing, that before you start filing anything, you better know what you're reading and you better comprehend what you are doing. Because if you don't comprehend it, nobody else is going to sit there and protect you. That's the one thing that people got to remember, because the lawyer does not work for you. The lawyer works for the British government. And I have literally had major arguments with lawyers telling me that, oh, we don't work for that. I don't know where you get the information. Well, type in the 1878, October 17th or 21st, the American Bar Association, and it says right on the American Bar Association that the lawyers work for the British government, called the British Accreditation to the King and Queen of England. And people like to say, oh, they don't work for England. And it's like, come on, people, wake the hell up. The Bible runs them. And as soon as you start accepting the terminology of what the Bible really is compared to what people are being wrongfully educated, you know, and then some people would say that the Bible teaches people the right way, and they got the pastors and preachers and the schools and everybody are teaching them the wrong way. Well, I don't care. It came from England. Anything that comes from England, send it back. Anything came from Spain, send it back. Because this is the one thing. Our country is not British. Our country is not from Spain. Our country is native. We had invaders and terrorists from other countries coming into this country, rape, robbing, and pillaging, just like they are still doing today. And if you do that, you can type in Christians being murdered by the Christians being murdered, Indians being murdered by the Christians. And that's real history. The preachers and everybody murdered the Christians. The Christians murdered the Indians. And so that's the whole point, is that now we're dealing with the circumstances of facts and reality. They murder people. Christians are still doing it today. Rape, robbing, and pillage. They're writing you tickets. They're beating the shit out of you. They're shooting you on the street. And the court systems are protecting them. This ain't no fantasy. This is reality. You're living it, folks. And so you got to step up and start comprehending what's going on around you. So anyhow, tonight we're going to get into nonprofit organizations, and that's where I got to find my paperwork again, because I just got, my computer went down, and now I have to go through about 500 deals today to find what I had up, because frustrating, but I'll get to that in a minute. I'll go grab some other pages. But you got to realize nonprofit organizations are liable. And the main thing is to realize that anybody who runs a nonprofit is personally liable with your home, your assets, your car, your jewelry. And that's the one thing they won't tell you, because lying is the proper thing to do by the Christianity structure. They teach you how to lie in church. I know. I went to church. We were taught how to lie in church. So, I mean, and that's the whole point, people. You got to realize what the real facts are. Now, natives don't go by the Bible. The Bible was shoved down our throats, the natives' throats. We were forced to read this stuff. We were forced to have our hair cut. We were supposed to become what they call civilized. Well, you know, the one thing is that Christians ain't civilized themselves. So it is one of those things that when you step out of the movie, watch the production of the real truth. But I want to get into nonprofits tonight. And you got to realize that with a nonprofit, and I have been a nonprofit, and I was sort of glad that the state sent me a letter and told me, no, we rescinded your contract. You can never be a nonprofit. Oh, that's right, because when I was a nonprofit, they tried to come after me. Terry Thompson, former commissioner, the House and Senate members tried to come after me. That includes Kate Brown, governor of Oregon. And so I've already lived this stuff. I went through this stuff 20 years ago. And so when they relieved my deal and said I could never be a nonprofit, I was happy, because I didn't realize what a nonprofit was and the liability of a nonprofit until after I was a nonprofit. And that's the one thing you don't realize until after you do things and you do learn and you go through the hard acts and these terroristic attitudes that you're being taught and educated on by people that are out to make a buck, because they make a buck off of you. Now, the one thing is nonprofits, they can write off their homes. They can write off water, electricity bill. And they always say, well, we're going to bill the taxpayers. But technically, they don't bill the taxpayers. They just write it off. And that's the one thing that people got to realize, what a write-off is. And that's the one thing I want to try to find this form I had that I was looking at, because it explains it. And I wanted to read that to you, and I'll give you the form numbers here in a minute. I'm going to go grab this other form on my computer. I'm in my printer. But this is the one thing that people need to comprehend. Nonprofits, all right, when you file on a nonprofit, and there are forms to file on nonprofits. Yeah, and let me get on FB and I'll pull one up here and read it to you. Because, I mean, and people need to realize nonprofits, you know, these are structures from the banks to write off. But then again, they say they write them off against you. And so when they say they're writing it off against you, they expect you to pay this debt that they're creating for you. That's called the bankers, churches, ministers, elected and public employees, because all your states, all your police departments, all your churches, everything around you is a nonprofit, for not-for-profit. And so you could actually report these nonprofits. And so if they're not reporting their income, because, see, it's like when you pay your water bill, your phone bill, a ticket, court costs, fines, you know, that means any type of fines, what they do. That means they're writing it off. You pay it, and that money goes into their pocket. They don't sit there and report that income. And most of the IRS, everybody knows it. And see, this is the one thing. People know this stuff. And so when people don't get this stuff through their heads of what's going on, this is what the point is. I get people, I was just talking to somebody this morning that called me up early, and then we got into the conversation about part of it, and then they're telling me this, that, and the other thing, and they're trying to convince me it doesn't work that way. So then I give them the evidence, the proof, the paperwork. And it's like, wait a minute, here's the paperwork. What are you trying to say? Prove it to me. And so this is the one thing, is a 1099 form I was going to pull up because I want to read some on a 1099 form, but until I get to it. But a 1099 form is where they have to report their income. So when you pay your water, electricity bill, file a 1099 form. And they're going to tell you, and I guarantee you, they're going to tell you, we can't accept that. Your mayor, city council, even your phone bill, even most of all your electricity bill. because everything is written off on a nonprofit. Of course, that's the best part about it. They like lying. And so lying is their job, their security blanket. That's what they do. And then they always try to say, oh, we won't lie. We wouldn't do that to the people. Well, they do it all the time, folks. No offense, folks, but how many of you people lie to your children about things? And then I grew up with the statement is, oh, white lies are okay. Hate to say it, but no lies okay. If you don't want to say it, don't say it. You know, walk away. Don't get involved in the conversations. That's the best way to handle the circumstances. And that's the one thing that people don't comprehend. You know, that you have these rights if you're native. If you are not native, you have privileges. Elected and public employees have privileges, no rights. And I just want to let you, that's the other point I was looking for. The one thing to let people know, the ATF came out, and with the bump stocks that they were saying that they were going after, ATF has no legal or lawful authority to tell they couldn't sell the bump stock. So they are facing a lawsuit over it. And so I'm trying to get a hold of a couple of the people involved in it because they got some information sent to me. I sent them some stuff back, and so you can go after your public employees and shut them down on this stuff. And that's what you want to do. They don't give a damn about you, about you and your children. Why are you caring about them? I mean, this is the reality, folks. When you have such a heart, this is the problem with liberals. You know, they turn on their own children. They don't even have respect for their own children. Oh, you need to go this direction. You need to do that. They don't give a damn about their children. Elected and public employees do not care about your children. You know, and trust me, I've seen it. You know, I've been around government most of my life. And so, and this is the one thing that, remember, banks are nonprofit organizations. So they get to write off things. They get to do a lot of stuff that you can't do because you're not educated enough to be a banker for their knowledge. And that's the other point. They use bonds, insurance bonds. And so, and we've got that. We'll have that put up on the new.org and trackers. And excuse me, I think it's, what is it, 60 pages long. Not quite that long. It's the one I got here is short. This one here is 8 pages. We'll get up. We might be able to run this next week on the show when we get into some of the maritime stuff. Because people need to start realizing what these things are compared to what we're being misinformed about, or including even lied to. And remember, your public employees don't care about you. So, and then let me get that. I don't have the thing. I had it up earlier on the codes, but banks cannot own property. They have no authority to own soil because a bank does not exist. It's an inanimate object, and the only one who could own soil is lawful bloodline natives, and that means men and women, and including children. Children could own property. They could own their structure. You know, until they're 18, they have rights, but unless their parents sign different things over to them, they have the legal authority. In Ballard versus State of Alabama, 1880, 6-5, and then also see Alabama 526. And then we can't forget the famous case of Terrence versus Bessemer, and that's National Bank. And this was 1913. And so these things are cases that have been in court. They've already proven their statute. And I mean, remember, most of the stuff that you go by is statute and administrative rules. They're not laws. They'll call a statute, administrative rule, or anything that a public employee will put in place a law. It's not a law. The only real laws in the United States, and that's the other thing I got to find because I was going to read you this, because the treaties supersede each and every statute and administrative rules. Native Indian treaties. And if they're the original treaties going back to the 1700s, that is the whole point. They have the authority. They're over the Constitution. Constitution was man-made. And that's the one thing that people need to realize. The Constitution is man-made. So are the treaties, and each state has a treaty with the British government. The federal government is the British government. And everybody goes, oh, I want to be a state citizen. I don't want a state citizen. You have no rights either. Come on, learn the law. It keeps you in the system under the 14th Amendment called administrative rule. The 14th Amendment was never passed, nor could have ever been ratified. And so that's the biggest point that people need to realize. It's all fraud. And so that's the frustration that we're all living with, and most people don't get what the fraud is because, no offense, they believe in some book that they think they have rights, and the book don't give you rights. The native treaties and the Constitution combined gives you your rights. And that's even by the Supreme Court law, which I'm trying to find because I had it up earlier before my computer crashed again. And, that just frustrated me because I thought I had all this stuff up and ready to go, and then all of a sudden the computer crashed. So, but this is the bottom line that's coming out to knowing what the truth is and realizing that the government is you, the people. You have elected and public servants. And as soon as people get the point of servants, they have a servitude to you. And they don't like it when you tell them that. And then you get some that like to be jerks. They'll try to shoot you or beat you to death. And I've been on both of those things. In the behind the scene or involved in both of those where they, and I've got those videos up too. But anyhow, 4506A form. Request for public inspection or copy of exempt political organization IRS form. Remember, the IRS is out of Puerto Rico, is not American. The IRS runs and is controlled by the Vatican and the Queen of England. Your Christians run the Vatican out of Rome, combined with England with the Queen of England. And so when you step out and you start looking at the real structure of that, that's why I always recommend a movie called Interstate 60, and I do recommend people watch it twice to get the court system. It's comedy. Michael J. Fox is in it. There's a lot of famous actors in it, in that movie that you all know in all of our lives that we grew up with most of these people on TV, and we watched them. But the 4506A form, it is very clearly stating, it's very simple. You just file their employee identification number. That's their VIN number. And you can type that up. You always want to type, you can always find most of the stuff on the internet. When Obama was in office, he had his crew. They had 1,500 people or 2,000 people rewriting the laws on the internet. Democrats do this all the time. Democracy does it. Everybody goes, I like democracy. Democracy, you have no rights. That's clear and simple. I have a right to vote. You don't have a right to do nothing because if you give up your rights as a voter, you gave up your rights. And if you actually read the voting laws, they can determine who's going to win. Been there, done it, seen it, been involved in it. And so, been involved on the right side of it. But this is the point. They don't want to tell you the truth because, they've been after me trying to get my soul convinced to turn over and apply to all this crap for years. And so that's the one thing is that when it comes down to the request on this form, that's the one thing I never saw where they ask for a signature on the form on this. At least they don't do that. They just ask for your name, address, city, town. Of course, I don't put Oregon, I put Oregon territory. And zip code, DMC, I can't remember off the top of my head. I used to know it right off the bat, but I always write DMC, the mail code on it because the zip code is part of the original structure of the military army forts. And zip codes were put in realistically until the 1940s, and it didn't go through until 1947 when we had zip codes. That was by administrative rules. Yeah, there were zip codes a little bit sooner, but they weren't known, and they didn't have real zip codes until the 1900s. And so that is the one thing, to look at the circumstances of how the corporations were formed, how they were filed, how they became existence. And that includes copyright laws. And that's the one thing that was copyright. Your name, copyright your name. And people say, well, you need to go to court and change it. Copyright it, claim it, own it. And then that way, if they use it in anything, you have a copyright on that name. You screwed them. And you want to make sure that you copyright your Social Security. And then you got people that say, hey, don't do that. They'll do this, that, and the other thing. No, you copyright it. You own your Social Security number. Because by Title 42, 408, if you use your Social Security number even for employment, yes, folks, that's a fact. Even for employment, you could go to jail. It's a federal crime giving out your Social Security number even for a job. And I know when I was used to work and go through all this stuff, I had arguments in the 80s and 1990s with employers going, we need to have that or we're not going to hire you. And I'm going, well, that's discrimination. You just told me you wanted me to have a job, but then you're asking for information. That's a crime. So they don't like it when you know the circumstances of the corporation. And that is the one thing that people need to realize, these things, what the truth is. And see, that is the one thing that is the truth, is coming down to you to know the truth. If you don't know the truth, then don't speak up. Don't speak out and don't act on things until you have the proper education. And that is the main thing. You've got to know the circumstances of what, why, and how. And so this is the one thing dealing with the IRS forms, 406. There was another one that I got to pull up. Where's that book? Fidelity. Form 56. This is Notice of Concern, Figure, a relationship of a trust. And that is your relationship of your birth certificate trust. And so that is the one thing, and that's Form 56. And so when you look at these forms, this is the one thing that people need to realize. The IRS and your local public employees, and I have all this stuff up, but never go to your local public employees because they like to rape, rob, and pillage because that's how they make their living. Because right now, the cops and their economy shouldn't be as expensive as it is. And that's a fact. It shouldn't be nowhere near what we are living today. And so when it comes down to it, I got to remember the other form number. Because, I had all this stuff, and I do apologize on this because I had all this stuff up before my computer crashed on me, and I had to restart it up, and then half the stuff was gone. And that's a frustrating deal because I've been trying to get back caught on it. And so that is the one thing that things like that happen. We all live that way. It happens. And because I'm going to type this up and start reading this form to you. Because I want you folks to realize what these forms are and how they do this and how it applies to a nonprofit. Because a nonprofit, you actually have to have permission from your local government. That's called the Secretary of State, and that's where you register your child. And that's the one thing that when you have a newborn, you don't have to register your child with the state. That's by law. They want to make sure that you are filing with them so that way they own your child. And if you don't register with them, they can't take your kid without a warrant. And they think that they can do it without a warrant, but when you really go to a real court, a real court, that's an Article 3 court. They do exist. And that's the one thing, they don't want you to know they exist. And when you don't know the laws and administrative rules, and so this is the point that people don't get it. Everybody keeps thinking they know all this stuff, They don't. That's like people think, I have to go get a hunting and fishing tag. And we've had that running earlier on the screen here. Waterways and water rights and lakes and all that stuff, including reservoirs. Because if they make a man-made water structure, it still belongs to the people. And people say, well, the timber company built it and that's on private land. Well, technically, timber companies cannot own any soil. And I know that for a fact. And only in Oregon, that only got changed by administrative rules in that was 2007 or 2009. It was changed because I was at the Capitol then. And that's what the Democrats did, so that way they could, because the timber companies were bitching because they were paying taxes on trees that they were taking from us people in this country without planting trees or reforesting the ground. And this is the one thing that people don't realize, that when you take something from the soil, you're supposed to give it back to the soil, back to us people. And so this is the liability that is supposed to be happening from the people who are profiteering on this stuff. And there is a lot of profiteering going on in this stuff. And I'll try to find this other form. But let me get this other form brought up, because we already got the form on 45068, and this is the federal form for the IRS, and you want to make sure it goes to the Department of Justice IRS Division. Don't ever send your paperwork just to the IRS Corporation in, I believe that's Philadelphia and Virginia. You want to send it to the Department of Justice, because that way when you send it to the Department of Justice, you're asking them to investigate. Because you send it to the employees, they decide if they maybe know the individuals or the corporation. All corporations are nonprofit. Like I said, your police departments, medical facilities. Of course, I'm not going after medical facilities or fire department, because those people actually do save lives. And so that's the one thing you need to realize, what public servants do save lives and what public servants work for you, and the ones who don't are out for profiteering. And so that's like everybody keeps going, well, you need to file taxes. No, you don't. That's voluntary. And you can even go on YouTube or type it in, IRS taxes, voluntary, and you'll see it come up from the state and feds. And people go, well, I know people went to jail for that. And I'm going, yeah, because they didn't withdraw their contract. They had a signature contract when you do your tax form and you send that in, that you put it in the point where now you become liable because you're agreeing to the corporations out of Washington, D.C. as a corporation, citizen, or national. And people say, well, I'm a registered national. Hey, you're a corporation member. You have no rights. And I've argued with these people, and I've even shown them the laws on it, and they still want to argue. And I'm going, here's what the law says. You're going to tell me the law is bullshitting you? And they're going, well, it doesn't matter. We'll have to deal with that in court. And then if they do get to court, they end up in jail. Because people don't pay attention. They don't live in real reality. They've been so convinced by TV, radio, fantasy stuff, Christmas, Easter, all this stuff, Halloween, all that's fantasy. It's man-made up, man-written. And so that's the point that we are living today with this craziness. So with the form, and then also, too, we'll get the clean hand document up, too, because I always like to do, when I put in my affidavits, like what I've done with the IRS stuff I have filed on the people I've filed on, the city, county, and stuff, is I put my clean hands document in it, because I'm coming in with clean hands. And you want to clarify that. If you don't want to put the document in, you always clarify, I'm coming in with clean hands. And number one, do not do it all in capital. Capital C, capital H. You don't do all capitals. You use all capitals, you're in the fiction of Washington, D.C. You have no rights at all. And, most honorable cops will even tell you that, but people are not honorable. Most of them are honorable because they like their high paychecks. Because I don't care how these people lie to you. Cops make on the average of 80 to 180, sometimes $220,000 a year. And remember, cops are to lie to you. You got to remember that. Cops are not there to protect you. So in the other part, we'll get this one run up probably next week when we do the stuff on the maritime, because this is the castle document and standing your ground law. And so this is the point, knowing what the standing your ground law is. When these people try to tell you that you have to fill this form out, you have to do that, well, I'm standing my ground. And you don't have to sit there and explain all this stuff to them. That's where the attorney will tell you, shut your mouth. Because everybody keeps going, if I talk to them, I keep producing this and I keep going on and on and on, they're going to let me go. Quit living in fantasy. How many people I've talked to that says they're going to be able to do this, and they can't? I mean, that's the standing ground law, physical protection of your property. That could even be your child. Your child is your personal property. That's why you don't want to register them with the state, because then they become a state corporation, a nonprofit structure, and then the state writes off your children on a nonprofit instead of as a secure creditor. So it is stepping out and putting these things together and comprehending even what a secure creditor is. So you don't want to be the debtor. That's why, people all the time say, oh, Ed, why don't you do credit cards? Why don't you do cell phones? Why? I don't want to be in their system. Because if I'm not in their system, they can't legally come after me. And they know it. It pisses them off. That's why when I was in ICU unit, they came in and robbed my house when I was in ICU hooked up on life support. They do this stuff to people. But, it's always sad when your neighbors will sit there and they tell you, oh, we watched what happened, but then again, we're not going to go to court because we're not going to lose our job. And that's the problem with people. They've been so convinced with terrorized acts by these people that they live in fear. How many people they live in fear. Everybody wants to live in fear. That's why I say if you go to one of these kangaroo courts, you have to know what you're going through in that, and you always want to make sure you've got witnesses that have affidavits, and by law, you can record the courts. They tell you can't. I've got a YouTube video up with Chris Walker being kidnapped and held against his will because he was videotaping the court, and the sheriff comes up and says, I'm going to arrest you for taping. The judge told me to come arrest you. And we all said, where's your warrant? He goes, well, we don't need warrants. We can arrest anybody we want. We don't need a warrant. We can just take you. Remember, that's identical in Nazi Germany. You're living in Nazi Germany today, no matter what the fantasy you think. Praying to God ain't going to work when these people come to you. Praying ain't going to do the work because you have to know people around you. You have to know the law. Excuse me. You have to know the system. And you have to have people around you who know the system. And that's the most important thing. It's education. Parents don't educate their children today. They let the kids go to school and be programmed. Most parents, especially today, they don't give a damn because they haven't even been educated. They've been so convinced of video games controlling their life, they don't even live in life. And that's the other point. Kids today don't get physical activities today. Most of them don't. They sit in front of a TV, they sit in front of a computer, and they don't get out. And believe me, there are teenagers who have died for sitting in front of a computer with heart failure because they never got out and exercised. And that is a fact. So I want to go get this other form. Because I was trying to find the other form on the internet, but I couldn't find the other form I really wanted to get into on a nonprofit. Because when you start getting into these forms and stuff, and you start realizing like 406 or 456A, you got to realize that they have forms in the federal government that you can file to protect yourself. I mean, I've got filings that I'm doing right now dealing with property rights. So they're telling me, oh, Ed, you have to pay taxes. So seeing that they want me to pay taxes, that's income. That's the other point. I was looking at the other income form that I found. But that's income. So they're liable. They have to report that income. Not you, but they. But seeing that they're not reporting it, that's why this 4506 Form A that you want to take and you want to autograph it and send it to them. You want them to prove the income that you paid them on the de facto dollar. Because remember, dollars today are promissory to pay, not gold and silver. It's not like it was, in the 1800s when paper money was backed up by literally gold and silver. You could walk in with a $10, $20 bill back then, and you could just say, I want gold or silver, and they give it to you. Today you go to the banks, and the banks are required to carry gold and silver in their banks. They're supposed to carry so many pounds of gold and silver in their banks. Of course, they tell you when you want to go get it, they tell you, oh, we don't have it. We don't deal with it anymore. And of course, they lie too, because the banks couldn't exist unless it was on the de facto system. So even banks are a nonprofit agency. So if you have a problem with your bank, do the research, and you can file a freedom of request form on them to prove that their income. And this is the whole point of doing this process. Now, I will have our letters up on new.org and trackers on this stuff. Excuse me. Oh, it shouldn't. I'll have my paperwork up, and we'll have the forms put up in the tax structure, because new.org and trackers, we have a link for taxes. And that is the one thing that with the tax structure, you got to realize taxes do not stay in your city, county, or state. I've been serving them Freedom of Information Acts for 20 years, and they keep denying me because they don't want the real truth out. I've gone after them to prove their deposits, incomes. I mean, in 2002, I even recalled the entire Lincoln County School Board, and I proved beyond a shadow of a doubt they embezzled $30 million that I proved. The state attorney general and the district attorney and the sheriffs and the local cops, everybody was attacking me like crazy, and at that time my family, because, they didn't want the truth known. Remember, these people, I don't give a shit if it's your mommy, daddy, brother, or sister. They don't give a shit because their oath is to the corporation called the Roman Catholic Church. Any religion does the same thing. I mean, come on, look at the Muslims say. We got to murder the infidels, and that's the same structure going back to the Christian Crusades. It ain't no different. Because remember, the Muslims were formed by the Christians, and the Christians and Muslims separated and went off in a different direction. 11 AD. Or 1100, I mean. So, and all that stuff's in history. It's even been run on the History Channel. And these things are out there. But most people don't comprehend what they see, what they read. Excuse me. And so they don't get what they're reading. And that was the point. How many people do comprehend what they're reading? That's why I say at least have two dictionaries beside a Black Law dictionary or the Bouvier dictionary to cross-reference. So it's like when you're running these paperwork on the nonprofits, do your research. Like I found the nonprofits for my city, county, for the sheriff's department. And so, I mean, and also, too, realize you got to look at the men and women who names are on those nonprofits. And you will realize those nonprofits are not on a street address. Everyone that I have looked at so far, except for one, has a P.O. box and a street address. But they're using P.O. box numbers, so don't forget that's federal mail fraud. Even if they send you a ticket in the mail, that is federal fraud. Property tax in the mail, that's federal fraud. Because that's threatening you. If that you don't pay this, we're going to either assault you, cage you, put you in prison, or shoot you. And I sat there with people where the cops said, what are you going to do, shoot me now? We got 50 witnesses or 30 witnesses when I've been on the beach where they try to beat me to death in a few things. You know, so, and I mean, even down at the jetty one day that they, at the Nye Beach area, the cops tried to beat me to death on the deal right in front of people until people started yelling at the cops. So they ended up slamming me against a concrete bench that crushed my back. So, and you go after these people, and you go try to have what they call a lawyer and attorney go after these people. Remember, the lawyer and attorney works for the cops, works for the judge, works for the bar, the British Accreditation Registry to the King and Queen of England. And don't forget, all your nonprofits and every business in your state, city, county are registered under the Secretary of State. So that's one way. You go through the Secretary of State and type in a deal or call the Secretary of State up. Don't tell them what you're doing. Don't ever do that. You know, me, they just, when I call up, they're like, okay, Ed, what do you want? So it's like, you know, hopefully you never get to that point. Hopefully you get where they just don't know who you are. But you want to sit there and you want to make sure that you ask the Secretary of State their registration and file number. And also, too, ask him if it was registered certified or not. Makes a big difference. Basically, on liability issues. But nobody's going to tell you that, especially all these other people on Facebook and YouTube, because most of these guys are out there making a buck off of you. You know, we're not charging people, you know, I mean, sometimes I figure we should, but we're not charging people on this stuff. We're giving out the education so that way, because if we charge people, we're no different than when the people get attacked and assaulted, because that's why they end up in jail. They've tried that with me, didn't work. Then, you know, I've been dead 13 times, been through all this stuff. I'm still here. But, you know, the point is that you have to look at how to go to get your paperwork. So, and you can go on your city website, and it'll tell you some stuff. Get as much information as you can on their nonprofit status. You know, it's like the thing is the circumstances with your rights to hunt and fish. You know, I mean, I was talking to people this morning dealing with in California. We had that running up on the Oregon trackers that you have a right to fish and hunt without a hunting and fishing license. And then I want to get into in California that for your rights to fish without a fishing license, that is, oh, hang on a second. Oh, I got the other one up here. That is Article 1, Section 27, and let me just go ahead and pull it up so I don't give misinformation on that one. But also, too, before I get to that, remember, banks cannot own properties. That's by law, and that's by Title 12. And I do recommend people read Title 12 on banking laws, because people need to realize and read this stuff. It's your responsibility. California Constitution, Article 1, Section 25, that says you have the right to fish without a license and feed your family. Oregon State has something similar, but they changed that. In Oregon, they don't want that done because since Kate Brown has been in office and the Democrats have been running Oregon State for the last 15 years, they've been literally changing the administrative rules and changing stuff on the website. And so that's the point, that it's going to take we the people to go after them, convict them. We the people have to do it. And people say, call the cops. It's like my house was robbed apparently by the Toledo Police Department. You know, where are you going to call the cops? The ones that are robbing you? The ones that are trying to shoot you? I mean, I got videotapes putting guns in my head and all this stuff. And I've never committed a crime in my life. I've never went out and physically assaulted somebody who actually did not deserve it. Because of my profession, my old profession, I had to deal with things that way until I got more wiser. But that's the one thing, that basic law says you have the right to hunt and fish. So when it comes down to these circumstances, you got your public employees that are nonprofit. Department of Oregon Fish and Wildlife, Arizona Department of Fish and Wildlife. All your Department of Fish and Wildlife are nonprofit. And I don't know why people give donations or donate to churches and give their house and property over to churches. Because those people don't care about you. I mean, I know that. A friend of mine who just died at the beginning of this year, and I called up the church, wanted to see what they were doing services for him or anything. He was going to the church steady for 10 years. He was a very guy that really believed in it and kept on telling me, Ed, you don't go that way the way you talk. God does this and God does that. And so, when he died, I called the pastor up, and I was talking to the pastor, and I asked him some information, and and he's like, oh, well, we didn't do a service for him. The guy's he brought so many people to that church, got him into that church, and the pastor, when I talked to him, originally he didn't even know his name. But he talked to him every Sunday for 10 years. So that's what I'm saying, people. You got to pay attention to who, what, why, and how is going on around you, because if you don't pay attention to the real points, you're not going to have any points. And remember, these people don't care about you. They care about their cars. They care about their electricity. They care about their food bill. They care about the children that they have and how they're going to come up and feed their children and survive them and waste money on college. Because colleges don't educate kids today. Not like it used to be in the 60s and 70s and earlier. They actually educated people. I mean, kids back in the 60s would come out of school with a 9th grade graduate education, and they knew more than most college kids did. So it is stepping out into history and looking at these facts. So anyhow, I want to get a couple more things, and we'll open up the floor. But let me make sure that you comprehend. Banks cannot own property, and bank loans are frauds. Because bank can only loan money, what they call money, by gold and silver that they have in their possession. They cannot loan debt notes. And we'll have that up. Bankers can't lend money. That's on Scrubs. There's a lot of stuff that, when you look at the real history, what they can and cannot do, and I do recommend you read with the banks, Title 12, the banking laws. That includes your child is in that structure. And that's the one thing you got to realize. And I was going to read the other point, too, was the Constitution, because the treaties by the Supreme Court and by the Justice Department clearly state that the Indian treaties supersede the Constitution so long as they were written at the time of the Constitution, which they did have treaties written at the time of the Constitution, and they don't want to tell you. Even at the Civil War, the natives wrote treaties, again, with the British government, called the federal government. Remember, these governments are non-profit agencies. Now, I don't recommend going after the hospitals or the fire department, because I wouldn't do that myself. But I'm going after, like, the police department, the city hall. We're paying water bills, and we pay so many taxes in our water bill. 40% of our water bill is tax. Even for our electricity bill in my county, just to start having electricity is $80 a month. Straight up $80 a month before you even use any usage. They put all these taxes and administrative fees and their vacations and party times and all this stuff in these administrative rules that they pass for you to pay. And that's the one thing that people got to realize, that they're going after you to pay for their party in life. But they say, even though the law says they're not supposed to do that, they hide behind a private contractor who's a cop, because all cops are private contractors. They're rent-a-cops. They're no different than a mall cop in the malls. A sheriff deputy is no different than a mall cop either. And that's the one thing that people have to clarify and know this stuff. God, I hate you Yahoo now. I hate to say it, but Yahoo now, they're deciding what the hell you could have in your computer and what you're allowed to send out and what you're allowed to save. It's getting as bad as Facebook. But see, this is called Nazism. You're living in the Nazi world, folks. So when you realize that the banks can't own property, the banks cannot loan money, and the only money that they can loan is the creditor's money, and that's gold and silver, not debt notes. Because a check has no value unless you believe in that. It's like the dollar bill in your pocket. It has value because you believe in it. And that's the point. And then when that dollar bill goes away, and everybody's going to be panicking. And that's the frustration. Your children are going to have to live more and more coming up than what we got going on today. And it is horrifying that we are living the same. We are living the same as Nazi Germany. There is no difference today than it was in the 1930s and when we had World War II. And don't forget, the British government funded both sides of World War II. And the only reason why they jumped on the American side because they knew the British or the Nazis were losing. And so this is very valid for you folks to comprehend this stuff. I got to go over because I want to read the Constitution on the native laws because people need to realize that what the native laws are. Oh, the other point I got to bring up too is when you do your paperwork, and including when you're filing on what you're filing on the nonprofit agencies, don't forget to put the 1938 Foreign Registration Act in it. Foreign Administration Registration Act. That is apparent because even doctors, lawyers, attorneys, police officers, any public employee and contractor, by law, has to register with them. And if they don't register them, they can do, the law says, once you file on them and you get convicted, if they don't do their job, it's minimum 1 year in prison. Minimum 1 year. There's no time served or anything until after 1 year. And so, like I've stressed in my paperwork, that's what I demand on the circumstances in my paperwork. So that's what, that's why they robbed my house and stuff, because like I was talking to the mayor one afternoon, this before I ended up back in ICU, I said, fuck it, we're going to go to court. I said, don't worry, I'm coming after your home, because he's like, oh, you can't do that. And I said, you know something? I said to Rod, you know me 25 years. I've been nice for 25 years. Now I'm not being nice. Where the heck did the Indian treaties go off that I just had? I just put them up here this morning. Oh, it's so frustrating when you got Yahoo and these corporations deciding what you can do and what you can't do. Never give these people a right. And when you sign your checks, always sign them all rights reserved. Title I-207 and I-308. Because 207 is the new one compared to I-308 was the former structure of you not giving away your rights, but they changed the paper dockets to confuse you. So I guess I'll come back to that because I can't even find the treaties. I just emailed myself 4 times today. So why don't we go ahead and open up the floor if somebody's got anything and if I missed something, because we want to get that out. And then when I get the paperwork up, we'll get this all up on the pages so that way you guys can learn this stuff, because this stuff is going to be in the structure of this stuff permanently, because if we don't protect yourselves and your children, there is no future. And you got to realize that future is in your hands. Your children's birth certificate registration is in your hands. Don't sign it. Don't turn it over to the state, because the minute you sign the state registration for your child, male or female, you signed your rights over and that child to the state to come in your home without a warrant. And remember, that child is still a nonprofit agency under Washington, D.C. administrative rule, and that was FDR's Bill 2040. So when you step out and you start realizing what these administrative rules are compared to what you think they are, and remember, when somebody tells you something, even when I tell you something, go prove me wrong, look it up, double check. It's your responsibility, not mine. I don't have a problem giving out the advice and suggestions, but it's your responsibility to prove it one way or the other. And when you do these things, your responsibility is to read this stuff and know what it is. And I still can't believe, because I can't remember because the title with the Constitution, because I was going to try to do the federal law on it. But like I said, I've got to go find it again, and because it's nowhere on what I just sent myself today. So why don't we open up the floor and we'll go from there.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody would like to add anything this evening?
Good evening, Ed.
Oh, go ahead. How you doing, Willow?
Yeah, I'm great, brother. It's been a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to say, always when I sign something, birth certificate, anything I sign without prejudice, UCC 1207308. I make my name, and I sign my name in lowercase, not capcase, because I'm not a part of the cap system. You know that.
We're native.
I'm sovereign Native American, correct. And I believe that the American Native people are not uneducated about the laws, and which we need to like you coming on here, and I love it that you invited me as American Native woman. That you're correct on everything you're saying. I'm not sorry that you can't find your papers there, but I'm with you, brother. I one time had a friend. I can tell a story where I had a friend had his driver's license taken from him, and I told him many years ago, you sign underneath your driver's license your name in lowercase UCC 1207308, and we'll see what the judge. Well, the cops come along. You know, the cops work for the judges, and they all work together. And they took his license away from him. So I turned around and done a UCC form and sent it to the Secretary of the State of Illinois, and the Secretary of State put a lien against I went to the county assessor's office and found out that the judge had some property. I didn't tell the county assessor who I was at. He was judge, you know what I'm saying? I just asked for the person's property. So they gave me the copy of sheet of the assessors of their property, and I put a lien, UCC1 lien, against their property, and the Secretary of State signed the lien and approved the lien for the property for the taking of the license. But I was the proof of service. So always, when I had proof of service on that UCC 1207308 lien, the judge got back a letter, and he brought me in his chambers. He like to blew a gasket. And he kept saying, I'm your honor. I said, no, you're not my honor. You're not my father. You're not the king. You're not my royal family. I'm an American Native sovereign, and I'm not a citizen, and I'm not into slavery. So slavery was abolished. And I explained that to him. I said, so what you done was a criminal act against the man to take his driver's license away and rid him of his rights to travel.
Not only that, he stole personal property.
Correct. And then we turned around and took his property away from him, and he liked to blow the gasket. I mean, and then he took my grandson. Oh, my. He took my grandson in foster care. So I filed a declaration of proclamation on him and let him know under Title 25, American Indian Civil Rights Act, 1968, that you don't have property rights to my Native American grandson. And so when the Department of Children and Family Services came in with the judge, I'd already filed with the judge my sovereign rights, and under certain Title 25 USC, he's like, bring the Department of Children and Family Services in here, and my daughter, they took the baby from birth and kept him for 6 months away from his mama. But today, now, they don't bother with my family no more, Ed, because I put them all on official notice. I am not an American citizen. I don't claim to be a citizen. I am sovereign, and my sovereign rights as a Native American is this is our soil. This is our courthouse, my honor. I called him my honor. He said, no, I'm not. I said, no, you're not my father. You're not my chief, so you don't have rights to passage. and you don't have rights to the soil and the land that you're standing on, or even
Right.
representing. So he's like, okay. So he brought the family services lady in there and the foster mom back, and I told him, because my daughter had smoked cannabis. I said, well, cannabis is not.
Well, actually, the legal term is hemp.
Yes.
Compared to what anybody else will tell you. And I think I sent you the paperwork on that, where hemp is lawful for natives.
Yes, yeah, but George Washington. When they always say George Washington chopped down a cherry tree in Mount
He
Vernon.
was all smoking dope back then.
It was all hemp, and he chopped it down and burned up a big old field. Just imagine how much money we can make America, and just take the pharmaceutical companies, make them bankrupt, if we was to grow hemp and be legal in the United States, and people could use hemp freely. I mean,
well, even cocaine was freely in the United States until they did the Marijuana Act, and that's where people don't realize that cocaine they used to sell all the time in the late 1800s, and it was only sold basically in the barber stores back then. You know what I mean?
Well, that and Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was putting Coke in Coke.
Yep.
Why do you think they called it Coke? It was cocaine, They didn't want to put the cocaine on there. They just wanted to put Coca-Cola.
Yeah, no, it is interesting when people start realizing what real history is, because now they're doing this opiate crisis bullshit.
Yeah.
Saying we got an opiate epidemic, and that's bullshit, because, I'm fighting to get pain medication, and they're like, we can't give you pain medication. I said, so I'm supposed to suffer like you made Jesus Christ suffer in your book, and Sister Teresa, everybody thinks Sister Teresa was some wonderful saint of the religious structure. Sister Teresa was the most cruelest woman in the world. She made all the people in India suffer in pain and watched them die while she's running around the world collecting money from all these people, but nobody went until after she died, filmed what her hospitals were about. And it wasn't until after she died when all of the stuff started coming out about her.
Correct.
So, and it is sad that we go through this, because, see, the thing is, I was watching a movie that, I wanted to save, and it ended up going, I got to find it, but it was a amusement park, run in the 70s. And back then, nobody called an attorney, nobody filed criminal charges. You broke your leg, they got it covered, you went on with life. And it was like, what was that called? Personal responsibility and liability. And, I talk to public employees all the time, and that's the one thing, like you're saying with the judge, I call him a public employee, you servant.
You're
supposed to be my servant. You're beneath me.
Right.
And they don't like it when you say that.
That's why I called him my honor, and he like to fell off the bench. And he's like so mad at me. He says, that's not I am called your honor. I said, no, whenever you take that unrighteous robe off, then you wouldn't be a judge. You'd be my honor.
Right.
Miss Elizabeth, you can't be talking like this in this courthouse. I said, Your Honor, I reserve my rights to be saying anything I want. We wrote our own Constitution, American natives. A lot of people don't realize that there was already a Constitution written with the Bill of Rights, and that was like, 1636, I believe it was, that Constitution when they wrote that.
Yep, and don't forget that was redone in 1770, and then it was done in the 1778 Administration Act when they put the Supreme Court in place.
Correct. Then that was like Weissmeyer versus Georgia.
Yeah.
That was one of the cases that was
one of the cases, yeah.
Yep.
And that was back in 1789.
Correct. And all those 22 treaties today, I say to the women today, if we was to form, and then women are becoming empowerment, and you know that. Like myself.
Well, I know, but it would be nice if women stopped arguing and listening to the foundation.
Correct.
That's why we don't have, what do they call those women that used to run the tents?
No, we need our own foundation. We all need to sign and redo a new treaty because we never got to vote. We never got to have that right.
Well, nobody's supposed to vote. Didn't you know that the 17th Amendment was only passed for elected and public employees and registered church members to vote?
Correct. We register ourselves as sovereign natives, and we're going to opt out on the voter registration because we're not going to be slaves of the government.
Yeah, no, because I'm not a voter, and they try to put me back in voter registration, and I got an apostille from the clerk that says that they cannot put me in that. They even try to put me in, saying that I need to go to court and be not a court but a juror. And I said, I'm not a juror. If I'm a juror, I come in armed because I don't know what's going to happen in that courtroom. And they were freaking out over that point, and they said, you can't sit there and tell me that I have to be a juror because you're running a corporation. Correct. And that's the whole point. These court systems are corporation nonprofits, and they're making money off of us.
Yeah, I like what you said about 45.6, your A form. That's pretty cool. That was interesting. I was unaware of that, so I'm glad you brought me on there. Every time I talk to you, I write down my dictations about things that you say because you're such an intelligent man. I'm honored to have you as a friend here, Ed.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let's see if anybody else wants to jump in for a minute, and if not, we'll come back to our conversation. Anybody else would like to jump in and say anything?
Yeah, I would.
Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay, this is John, Fort Worth, Texas. Hadn't talked to you in a long
time. Oh, that's right, John. Good talking to you.
Okay, I'm going to talk fast. Have you done the file with U.S. Tax Court that you don't pay any taxes?
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm still sending that letter in too that you provided me. That I'm still putting it up. I don't know if we have it on the website yet, but I'm still getting that out, and I'm still putting that in every other week. No.
Don't do that. Things have changed. If you look
explain to the people.
Okay, if you'll go to U.S. Tax Court and pull up case number 6840-19. There's two boxes, 6840. Second box is 19. It's obvious it's 2019. Okay, you'll see an order in there that I put in there that was granted. The paperwork's so easy a 10-year-old can do it. Okay, there's an order in there, and I put in from 1996 to 2018. They don't have jurisdiction. It was granted. I'm thinking about I might change it and go back to 1971 to 2018. I have helped a lot of people, and they're getting that done now, and a bunch of them have already got it done. Seriously, I put on my Facebook deal a 10-year-old can do it. Then I changed it. I said, well, actually, I think a 6-year-old can do it. The paperwork is so simple. I have had a lot of people, they try to change it. And I said, why did you do that? I have a lady in California that I was helping. I said, just do what I tell you to do. She's been kicked out 3 times. She gets off into third-party influence.
Right.
You can have the best paperwork in front of you. It's work. It's and people try to change it. People that don't have confidence in themselves. Oh, I got to ask somebody else. Well, let me talk to so and so. It's like you can't make up your own mind. People have done this and done this. What I think I will do is go ahead and fill the paperwork out as John Doe. It takes about maybe 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just send it to you, and you can post it. It's a 6-page. But generally speaking, am I talking too fast for the people?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
You're great.
Okay. Go to U.S. Tax Court and pull up forms. And then you see a petitioner's kit. It'll have a 245 on it. You pull that up, and then you send it to Washington, D.C. On the first page is the address that's in Washington, D.C. You send 3 originals in a paper clip, 3 originals to repeat it. Then you put a cover letter on it that says, please file and return back an envelope, self-addressed, of course. You put 2 $1 stamps on it, or you can put 2 international stamps. They're $1.15. Okay. When I
Well,
certified,
before we go any further, John, why don't you explain the point of a dollar stamp? You know the point of it, don't you?
No. This is just for mailing. You put it on the outside.
No, I comprehend. That's what I'm talking about compared to what they use a regular stamp. A dollar stamp has value.
Right.
Yeah, back will go.
That's what I'm saying. You know the value of that, don't you, on a dollar stamp?
Yes. Okay.
That's why I was asking you to explain it to the people who don't know. Did I lose your train of mind on, or your train of thought on that? Hello? Did we lose him?
No, I hit the numbers. My fault. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, no, I was just asking you to explain that for people who don't know it.
Okay, just back by go. Okay, every time you mail a letter, forget about the 2 cents that you can mail here, there, and all that kind of crap. Always put a stamp on it. Do not use meter. Okay, there's other things that you can do. But anyway, getting back to this, you put in there a self-addressed envelope, a 9x12 self-addressed envelope. You put 2 stamps on it. Either put 2 $1 stamps. I use international. They're $1.15. This is to return to you. You do an envelope, one envelope that's from you to you. That's what's coming back after they file stamp it in Washington. Then you'll certify the mail up there to you. You'll do an electronic signature on the certified. I do not use green cards to waste time.
Right.
I've been around the block a little bit. I've been an oil and gas layman for I got these calculated 44, 45 years. I've had a lot of green cards lost, and I use electronic signatures. Why do I use electronic signatures? Because you get on the computer, not only see the history of it, but you can see the electronic signature, and you can reference it back and have a copy of it.
Nice.
Okay. Things are changing. I used to send letters up there for a couple of my friends, my daughter up there, every 2 or 3 weeks, send letters. So they're getting thousands of these things a day.
Yeah, I know. People are really waking up.
Yeah, okay, this is the way you do it because I've done it. Okay, I've got the order. Well, you can see the order if you get the 6840-19. And long story short, I got a letter from the IRS last Saturday that said in that order, it did not say, I had $500,000 stolen from me out of the bank. I got $200,000 of it, I thought. And I filed the other $300,000 with IRS as stolen money. The IRS said, okay, we'll let you write it off. I said, great, I'd rather have that because the oil business was good and I'd rather have the write-off. Okay, they came back a couple of months later and said, we're going to charge you $61,000 for the $300,000 that was stolen. I said, you don't understand. I never touched the money. I never got it. I sold 14 gas wells. I brokered them. I didn't own them. It was for commission. Well, anyway, then they filed a judgment on me in the county court. It's a notice of lien. It's not a lien, but the county clerks converted it to a lien. Okay, there's a form that I filed. I think it's 12777 something or something like that. I filed the IRS for them to take that off because I had the order. I got a letter last Saturday. And they said they're not going to take it off. They don't have jurisdiction.
Yeah, can we hold on a second? Who we got in the background? Can we have them muted? Because I like to hear what John's saying, not what somebody's trying to say in the background. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I got that letter, and they said in there if I pursue something from my BS crap about, we'll file charges against you. Now I've got an order from the judge. The highest judge in the United States, and Washington D.C. It's kind of there's no jurisdiction from 1996 to 2018. They bull that crap. Anyway, so much for that. Are you familiar with get an EIN number? You need.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. This is
Yeah,
my
that's what I was
opinion.
talking about tonight too. Is that with your police departments and that stuff, you want to get the EIN numbers because then that way you file on that with the tax fraud where they're not reporting their income. So that proves their liability. That goes to their Social Security number.
Okay, I'm just dumb old country, but I'm still learning. Okay, you need 3 EIN numbers. You need an estate EIN,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need a bank EIN, which is E&T, estate
Right.
and trust. Okay, that's pretty strong. Now, when you file for a bank, it's a non-taxable, tax-exempt, unincorporated bank. Now, that's not the exact wording. I'm not looking at the correct words, but that's what you do. It's unincorporated and it's a bank. You get that EIN number, and then you file that. It's real strong. Then you get a 98 number. A 98 number is not easy to get. It's out of Philadelphia. Now, you realize there's several IRS offices in the U.S. as we know it. It depends on where you file it, where it might be Austin, Texas, it might be Utah, it might be Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
There's different ones you file in. Okay, that lady with IRS last Saturday got that letter. Sent one letter to Dallas and one letter to Ohio, and then her letter is from Oklahoma. Anyway, getting back to those 3 EIN numbers, you can get one EIN number, then wait next day and get another EIN. You need the correct wording when you do the bank.
Yeah.
Okay. When I sign it as three dash. I think it's one. I'm getting confused here. It's a -108. I'll do parentheses, formerly known as 207. Then I'll do another one. It's 103-36, 103.6, and that kicks it over into common law.
Cool.
And that's kind of slip it right in.
Why don't you repeat that again for folks?
It's 108, and I put parentheses, formerly 207.
Right.
And then, I put, that's in parentheses.
Mm-hmm.
And I put 103-6. That kicks it over into common law.
Right.
Kind of sneak it in there. Are you familiar with the GSA forms?
I was familiar with them, but I'm just starting to get into reading them more.
Okay. You need to do it. I believe it's SF.
Well, send me some of the stuff you got. You got my email, too.
Yeah. It's SF 30, 14, 14, 14, 16, 14, 18, and 1047. There's a lot more to this remedy that's coming up.
Trying to go about how they started resolving the issue.
Well, if you go into court, you can change the contract. That's what the FS30 is for.
Right. That's what a contract court is supposed to be. Contract court, not administrative.
Right. You go in there. There's another thing, too. See, these banks, when they go in there, they don't pay tax.
Right.
You can go in there and file now, you got to have some guts now. I had when I did my house, they foreclosed on me on my house, and I paid for it 4 times. Okay, I go in there and they do a summary judgment. In 3 seconds, they rule against me. They didn't even look at my paperwork. It had 19 pages. I hate summary judgments. I filed a 8231, and I piggybacked it with a 1099 OID. You've got to have them together. I walked into the IRS office in Fort Worth, Texas, and I said, I need a file stamp for this. I don't need to talk to anybody. I don't need to do anything. I just need a file stamp. And the guy called me in 2 minutes. There's about 50 people in there, and he stamped it. blue ink on the front and the back of several copies of filed in court. I made a loan. I know I'm skipping around, but I made a loan for $82,900 for my home. Okay, so the lender owed $4,300,000. It's a capital transfer tax.
Right.
Okay, the reason
that's dealing with oil wells, so people know.
Right. In my deal, it was 80. I made 84 payments, and it's $50,000 for the lender didn't pay the capital transfer tax.
Right.
Falls under 856. Okay, that adds up to $4,300,000. They got me out of there so fast. Well, anyway, I can go back, which is I've got the paperwork fixing to file it, and it's I believe it's, if I have the numbers correct, I'm trying to pull up here. It's 13909 or it's 13606, and you do a 926, and you also do a 211. That means of the $4,300,000, I'm filed in the court, and the court has to pay that tax because you got to pay a tax. It's like you go sell your truck, you got to
right. That's what I'm talking about. Filing on them, dealing with their nonprofit.
Right. Okay. The 211 is you get 30% of it, of the commission.
Well, yeah. Anytime you do anything of any budget, any government budget, that you prove that the fraud is, you get reimbursement for that for yourself. Because by law, they have to reimburse you for what you found.
Right. Here's skinny on it. Even if there is, it's left up to the agent. That's why you need to get a bounty hunter's license, which anybody can have that, and also be a Republic private attorney general.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of remedies out there, and I'm doing it. It took me a long time, kind of see what's right, correct. A lot of these people there's a lot of free information out there. Some of these people charging $5,000 and $10,000. So, oh man, I will get up my credit card. I just find need that.
I don't know. I don't deal with credit cards at all because I don't deal with banks. I deal in gold and silver.
Now, this is between you and me and the fence post, and I hope everybody's listening. Things are going to be changing here in the next couple of months. Do you know that it's my understanding, I was told this, I haven't checked it out, that the Queen of England has already told Trump that he could give up that corporation, the United States Corporation, 1871, and Trump has already signed the papers.
I know that. I know it's coming down the pike because we're getting ready to go back to the greenback system of gold and silver.
Yes.
The same thing Kennedy was assassinated for.
Right. And then there's a lot of stuff that's going on, what you think is this. That's why I say there's always three truths. There's your side, my side, and the truth.
Gotcha. So why don't we see if anybody else would like to speak up, John? Okay. So we'll open up the floor. Anybody else like to jump in? Anybody else got some thoughts right now? Nobody else? Okay. Well, hang on a second, John. Let's go back over to Willow and see what she's got. Okay. Willow, are you still there?
I'm here.
There's one other thing I want to say.
Okay, go ahead, John, first.
With the order I get, the theory is I get my money back. One man is getting $1,780,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been paid. He paid in to the IRS since 1961. He has all his canceled checks. But the IRS has all of his records anyway. So he's getting $1,780,000 back. When you get that order, it's a second stage, and they do not want to let go of that money. Even though they had no jurisdiction to take it. But anyway, that guy's getting $1,780,000 back. And it takes about 6 to 8 months to get your money back. But they don't want to give it back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I got to say. I'll send that John Doe forms up there, and you can post them.
Okay. Yeah, I went through something similar when the judge did that to me in 2014 when I told him to basically take a flying hike So because I told him to take a flying hike, he put a $75,000 bail on me and threw me back in jail. And everybody in the courthouse and jail is going, we don't get it, Ed, because you didn't commit a crime, and $75,000, you had to, really harm somebody. And I said, yeah, because the judge knows I was going after him, and that's what I was starting to do, to go after his pension. That's why the Toledo Police Department and whoever else who aided with them stole the paperwork and stuff out of my house to cover their ass. So you got to remember, these people do stuff. So so I think that people need to protect their property in other ways. The bear traps are good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Willow.
Well, I can tell you this: the 14th Amendment was never signed and ratified, and neither was the 16th Amendment for the tax.
Oh yeah, we know that. Yeah, because I already proved that. Because I proved the 14th to Donald Trump. That's why Donald Trump came out and said immigration has no right, and they're shipping them out.
Right.
Yeah, I proved that to him, because that even the Treaty of 1866 was it 68? What is the Laramie Treaty? I think that was 1866. The Laramie Treaty.
18. It's the Treaty of Fort Laramie.
Right. Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm with you. I know all the treaties. I'm up to date with the treaties since 1612.
Right, but that one made sure that nothing could be passed after that. People don't get that one, because the 17th Amendment, the right to vote, you can't vote, people. If you vote legally, you committed a federal crime. The only ones who can vote for administrative structure is elected and public employees and registered church members.
Correct.
Because all your church members are from England and Spain. There are no American church members.
Right, they're part of the Vatican. They're part of the British. Yeah, most definitely. I you know me, Dad. I know a lot about law, but I sit and mute a lot because I'm a female. They've been out to kill me all my whole life since I was born.
You would know that one.
61 years I've been here, and then I've been through every trial and tribulations and every court of law, and never been convicted of a felony yet. But they've tried their best, but somehow the Great Spirit's been watching after me. But that 16th Amendment. If a lot of people knew that the 16th Amendment, if they read the book The Creature from Jekyll Island,
yes,
with J.P. Morgan and Chase.
Yep.
You'll find out that was all a big Ponzi scam against American people. I mean, we're paying taxes, insurance for what cause? In the world, in 1930, what was it, 1933, Teddy Roosevelt went bankrupt. He bankrupt the United States?
But don't forget the bankruptcy put in House Resolution 192, so Native Americans are not supposed to pay their water, electricity, food bill, or anything.
Correct. We're not to be taxed, or we're under the exemption of the tax, and that's the reservation of our rights. That was where the common law Bill of Rights was written. Yeah.
Yeah, that even follows under Amendment 27. That's the other point I was going to read, but my computer went out before I got on the start of the show. That pissed me off because I had several things up, so I'll get them posted onto the New.Oregon Trackers YouTube site after we get done. I'll refine that and post that up on the comments of the talk show tonight.
Okay, great. Sounds good. I'll look at that and look at that. I'm glad you got back with me, Ed. I haven't heard from you for many months and many moons.
Oh, I was in ICU for the last 2.5 years. I've been in and out of the hospital. I've died since 2013. I've died 13 times. December, January, and February, I spent 3 months in ICU, and then a year ago, I spent a couple weeks in ICU. I mean, I spent a total of 4.5 months in ICU, and in August of this year, 4 weeks ago, I was back in ICU, and then that's when my house was robbed, and so it was like something told me to leave, and so I got up and I literally disconnected myself from ICU and walked out of the hospital, and everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing?
Hey, M.A.
You know.
You done immediate release.
So, and they're like, you can't do that. And I said, I can do anything I want. And they're like, well, you're not. I said, I know I'm not in good condition, but I got a bad feeling right now, and I have to go tend to my stuff.
Right.
And that's where people don't think that, people think that the cops can't steal from you. They can't do this. They can't do that. Folks, you better wake up to reality. You are living in Nazi Germany until you figure this out. Go ahead, Will.
My husband, I just married in 2018. My husband just had a stroke in Ohio. And
sorry to hear that. I know you just got married recently, yeah.
And he had a stroke. Well, he's on life support still. And, his children went and done a POA on me, and they confirmed that POA, but I already have a POA on my husband before that. We live on 43 acres here in Kentucky in the Trail of Tears, and they've taken my husband and taken him from Ohio and taken him to Florida. I don't even know where my husband is at today, Ed.
What?
No, I don't know where he's at. Even the judge there in Hillsborough County, he reported, his son Joseph reported me to the Department of Adult Protective Services for abuse on their father, and the judge dismissed that case. So now I'm going to turn around and go after the judge on him because my rights to my husband and my marital to him is standing. And that POA that they had signed was never certified in Ohio. A judge never certified that, but mine here, it was power of attorney. An attorney certified my POA here in Kentucky. It's a standing document with him, but I have rights to my marital with him. But the state of Florida is not looking at. The police department just stole my RV. They stole our truck. They come out here and shut my bills off. They're trying to steal everything. His son just got arrested in the courthouse for coming here threatening to kill me. I'm like, oh my, you name it, they've done it to me, Ed. And my husband, my main thing is, I don't understand how the state of Florida can keep him away from me, and I'm his wife, and why the hospitals and the police department and all of them conspiring, racketeering against me, and I've done no crime. The judge dismissed my case underneath the injunction order on me. He dismissed it.
Yeah, but a judge legally can't even do that. He can't even put an order on you.
Correct, because it was right. Correct. So I'm going to go after the judge. I'm going to ask that he be federally prosecuted and sent to prison for what
he done. Well, you need to file on him under native rights first.
I am. I'm going to file under 25 USC.
Yeah, you know what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to file underneath him underneath the sovereign nation because he doesn't. He's not a sovereign, and therefore I'm not underneath the Constitution. I'm underneath our own Constitution. The Utah tribe, a society of 1612. I'm under those laws, but I'm not under the United States laws. You know that with the Native American folk.
Well, and that's the one thing that people don't comprehend, that they think that the Constitution is the law, but the Constitution supersedes. I mean, the treaty supersedes the Constitution, but the Constitution guarantees the treaties. And I argue with people all the time on the phone about that, and it's like, here's the law, and then you give them the law that here's the Supreme Court law. Go to the Supreme Court website of Native treaties, and it says it right in the Native treaties by Judge Roberts. It still exists that the treaties are the law of the land.
Article 2, Clause 3, section of the law. Yeah, United States Treaty.
Yeah, thank you. That was one I wanted to read today. Yeah.
Article 2, Section 3 is we are the supreme being of the soil of the land of the United States. We are the ones that can tell and be the dictators of the government because we are the supreme being of the soil.
Well, are you aware that the Navajo Nation just redid their treaty with the British government so they could transfer hemp anywhere in the 48 states without being harassed?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, yeah, because I even got, I sent you the laws on that, because people don't realize that, natives don't need permits for hemp.
Correct.
And when people start talking, it's for marijuana or pot, you can't use their terminology, because that terminology didn't come in until what they call the 20th century. I don't know why, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to 1 to 2, but, it's like when those treaties when they try to sit there and go that, these things don't have merit, it doesn't have merit for elected and public employees, registered church members, and remember, all immigrants and immigration has no rights to food, water, shelter, or anything in this country.
Correct.
They're domestic terrorists. Yeah, they're invaders, domestic
terrorists. Correct. And a lot of people don't understand that. I'm so thankful that you brought me on your show tonight. I've been studying law since back in the day. I done it, and I had it done to me. But what's happened to me right now with the state of Florida, and that being a sovereign state, and Osceola won that war, and that's our state. It's not our territory. It's the 5 civilized tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, the judges and the police department and all the people that were involved at all, naming them individually in their official capacity as state actors underneath their constitution, has violated my rights underneath our constitution. So
right.
Therefore, they're going to have to do the sovereign nation versus the United States nation. They're not going to stand a chance with me because I'm not underneath Britain laws and I'm not underneath any other laws. I'm underneath the sovereign laws that was written in our Constitution that we read.
Right, and I got information that I will send you and provide you too for Florida.
Right, I need that, because I fell Ed, a year and a half ago and broke my arm in 3 different places. I have a plastic arm now. I had to undergo major surgery.
Sorry to hear that one.
I have an artificial plasties on my arm is artificial, my right arm, the one I write with. Now I'm a lefty. I'm on the left side instead of the right side. It's hard.
Yeah, I know.
So you know where I'm at, and it caused me some setbacks with the medication.
Yeah, but don't you realize that lefties think with the right side of their brain?
Well, I got a left brain.
So,
I'm a lefty.
Anyhow, let's see if somebody else will like to talk, and then we'll bring John back here in a minute. And then, well, because I'm looking at the time, we'll be wrapping up here in a few minutes. But anybody else would like to bring something up?
Yep. Let's see. I want to say, John, hook up with me. I like to have some of your information. If you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. So anybody else would like to bring something up? If not, John, you still there?
I'm here.
All right, why don't you finish up on your point, because we're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon.
I'll send that John Doe to you. It's about 5 pages. Just don't change it. Don't change nothing. And you can have to make a decision about how many years you want to go back, but the theory is you get it back.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 6 or 8 months. And I'll tell you this, they do not want to give that money back. But there are some people, generally speaking, 2 or 3 people a week getting their money back. Do you understand? The money you paid in it, you get it back. You get judgments back. What's really sad, people have lost their house. People have killed themselves because of taxes, IRS taxes.
Yep.
It's like, it's so sad. They didn't have jurisdiction. I want to ask you something.
Well, the other point, too, is I recommend to people, because when the IRS came after me in 1993, I said, where's the contract?
Right.
Because I've never filed. I don't play anything with IRS. I stay completely away from all that system myself, because it's like, where's the contract?
Right.
And that's the point, because when you start putting that stuff in contract, they can actually twist that stuff under administrative rule because you're agreeing to their terms.
Correct.
And people don't think that's right, but they do. And that's why I don't do credit cards. I don't do taxes. I don't play the game. That's why I'm fighting with my county right now over my property tax situation. And by law, I filed with them to approve the contract with them taxing my manufactured home, because by law, you can't tax manufactured homes. And so, this is the point that they keep rape, robbing, and pillaging from us. Go ahead, John.
Are you familiar with land patents?
Yes, I know what a land patent is, yes.
Okay, a lot of people, I'm an oil and gas landman, real estate broker. Okay, an oil and gas landman, they go out and lease land for oil and gas. They have to run the title from patent to
Right.
patent. Okay, I've done a lot of land patents, but they won't let me file. There's one I was fixed to be arrested. They won't let me file it. What that means is, there's no eminent domain. You don't pay taxes on it. That's your land, on a land patent. But they refused to let me file. I've done a lot of counties.
Well, see, that's why I like to send registered mail with a green card, because when they sign that green card, that green card is, people don't realize, the green card that you send in your mail is the same green card as an immigrant coming to this country. So when they sign that green card, they're signing the green card as they are the immigrant.
Yeah, but I don't use green cards.
Well, I know you don't, but I do. I like to put them in that position because that puts them in international law of liability.
You do know that Social Security cards have bonds on them, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I do know that. And also, too, under Title 42-408, if you give out your Social Security card, you could go to prison yourself for giving out that Social Security card number.
Yeah. On the front, you've got a number, and on the back, you have a number.
Yeah, the back is the back door to your EIN number.
That's your bank routing number also.
Right, exactly.
Your marriage has a bond. Your driver's license has a bond.
Yeah.
When you get married, people pay child support. But people don't know this, but they're supposed to pull that money off your bond. Nobody knows that. They don't want you to know that.
Well, I know, because they're collecting the bond money off it. That's like, that's why, I'm an ordained minister too. But the other point is I won't do marriage by a marriage certificate. It has to be a contract between the man and the woman, because a contract will be held up in court. A marriage certificate, the judge decides.
Your front bond is $11,200,000. Your back bond is $11,200,000. That's $22,400,000.
Right. Well, don't forget the original structure on the birth certificate bond was $630,000. So you figure that interest rate going from there today, what is that for somebody who's born today? I think it's like $18 trillion because the interest is accrued.
Right.
That goes through your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather. Your family is all the same structure of that same bank. And see, that's why under House Resolution 192, we're not supposed to pay our water, electricity bill, and that stuff. We're supposed to have it written off.
Well, yeah, people do that now with it.
I'm working on that right now. That's why part of the reason why I ended up in the hospital. That's why they have assaulted me and done all the stuff they've done to me for the last 17 years, because I've been proving the facts on it. I've been filing instruments for 20 years, and I've been asking them to prove their stuff, and they've been ignoring me. But now what's going on is, seeing that I'm going after two other angles on them now, they can't ignore me, and so that they are being brought up on the carpet, so they're going to have to live with it. Anyhow, I'm looking at the time. Anyhow, I appreciate you guys coming on, and next Saturday we're going to go over some what they call maritime law and maritime structure, and we'll be running stuff up on that. We do appreciate the calls tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and send me the information. I'll get the stuff put up. We'll share it and get that out. And that's the point, that when it comes down to this, is knowing your Constitution, your treaties, and your rights. And you have to realize, if you're an immigrant, you have no rights, period. Donald Trump came at it. I'm the one who sent the original paperwork in 2013. The original paperwork I wrote for Judge Scalia before he was murdered in Texas. And because Obama has proven that he is not from this country, it has literally proven he is not from this country. He's even admitted it on TV, and he jokes about it on TV, and people laugh with him. And it just shows you the people that laugh with him are buying their way, because they're making a living off of your birth certificate, bond, and insurance policies. So that is the one thing. Do your research, especially on your birth certificate, where you were born and what state and county you were born, because your banks in that state and county, all the business developments and all that, the interest for that is supposed to go to we the people, not to the banks, because the banks are supposed to monitor that and return that money. And so then when it comes down to the national debt, I'm putting together the paperwork on that. It'll be a short little mini book on it, literally, because I'm going through the whole IRS structure going back to the 1800s. And see, when the IRS declared bankruptcy, the banks did, and so we are not in debt. The bankruptcy debt of the national debt, and look up the term. Everybody goes, I want to be a national citizen. A national is a British corporation member citizen. Look it up, the real terminology.
Yes.
That's why, go ahead. That's what we was trying. So, but anyhow, look it up on what a national citizen really is. And we got all these people on Facebook trying to get people, and people are buying these things, programs from them and stuff, and then they're wondering why they're going to jail or being cited. If you're a citizen or national, under Executive Order 2040, you are an enemy to the native people of this country.
Yep.
And read the Executive Order. Go ahead.
That's under Code Section 7871. That's an exempt on that 1983 Public Record of 97-473. The sign of the American Indian Tribal Exemption. We're exempt from federal excise taxes or any exempts or any type of laws underneath that. Underneath that was signed with us. We have rights to the land and the soil of the United States, even the water, the air, and everything. We have all that rights underneath that.
Right.
Laws.
Well, you have that one, don't you?
That's 1983 Public Law Number 97-473.
Yeah.
Under Code Section 7871.
Yeah, send that to me because I like to get that put up because I used to have it. That was one thing. Like I said, I just went through when I went into the hospital, came back on my computer, literally went from Windows 8 to Windows 10, and everything went with it. Right. And I still don't know because I just turned on the computer, started typing, and next thing you know, it flashes, and then Windows 10 is up there.
You know, with the chattel, you know what chattel is? That's money to the mother line, and the bloodline, and the lakes and the rivers and the waters, the vehicles and everything confirmed of individuals of a Native American worthy of the treaty is underneath the act of the Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And Congress does not even understand. We are the allottees, the American Native are the allottees of the land and the soil, and the agreement was made with the tax of that section of 1983. And they totally breached that section of law. Are you serious? You should all be being.
Well, not only that, though, that section came after 2 court cases.
Correct. Yeah, I think that was Toeholz versus Trapp.
Yep.
3002Title28USC3002. 66.
Mm-hmm.
If I may.
That's the point. Go ahead, John.
No, this is the producer.
Oh. Okay.
I was
getting ready to call it. Go ahead. We'll let you do it.
Well, no, I was actually going to make a point. You got this lovely young lady here talking about Native American left and right. And thing is, when you say Native American, are you meaning those who are living on the reservations, or are you talking to anybody who's 5th generation or more?
15th generation or more.
15th? When did it get to 15th?
I'm the 15th generation of the Native American Utah-Western tribe of 1612.
Right, but to become a native by the Constitution standards, 5th generation born, you become native.
No, that's not legal.
Yes, it is. That's the structure of the 14th Amendment that turned out in the court cases of the native tribes.
Which was never ratified. They've never.
Yes, it was signed by the chiefs back then.
Yeah, you're right, Ed. They did sign that, and they were all massacred and murdered.
Well, they were massacred and murdered afterwards, but they signed it. But that's the law that the white man has to go by now, and they're realizing it because they're finally waking up to it, and so they're going by that. What White Cloud did. Running Buffalo, Running Bull, all these guys.
Sitting Bull signed that.
Right, you know what I'm talking about. So they're going by that now because the Supreme Court even said they had to go by that.
Right.
So that's the point, that they have to go back, and that's where they try to go and change it, and that's when the Supreme Court said that they have to go by the original treaties that were done by the British government in the 1700s, and including when the Supreme Court was formed in 1789, they had to go by that.
That was by 1760 when they wrote that Kiadawatcha.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't until the Supreme Court was formed in 1789.
Correct. That would be 25 USC 3001-33013.
Right, and don't forget 3002, the corporation number, too.
Correct. Right.
So, but yeah, no, you go back. My family goes back about the same, because my family fought with George Washington.
Yes.
Because when people say, "Oh, you don't know the treaty and you don't have rights to it," and I said, "No, your bloodline goes back that far. You have the right."
Yes.
But see, you have to see what I did. I got to send you what I filed and what I wrote in the newspaper. They freaked out because my paperwork was filed. And go ahead.
You have a reservation in your rights not to be compelled to the U.S. Constitution if you're a sovereign Native American.
Well, I know that. But what I did is I wrote my stuff up. Not only filed it and had it accepted in the Senate and House and certified by the Secretary of State, which they didn't like because they didn't realize what I did until after the fact. And then I was published in the newspapers for a month. I'll have to send you what I wrote in the newspapers. I mean, it is one of those things that I wrote it, and then I've had other newspaper articles that I've spent, $5,000 to have a lot of this stuff published in several newspapers around the state, because in that way, once it's published in a newspaper, and the other point, folks, when you do this stuff and you do your court case and stuff, if you can get it bounded like a book, don't use staple papers. If you use staple, that's called defacing the paper. Mm-hmm. You punch a hole in the paper, you got holes in it. You don't deface the paper. And the other point, too, is I do everything in red. I do autographs in red. I'll send you what I do on my paperwork here in a bit so you can see how I do the autographs, and then they freak out on it.
I do mine in red, too, Ed.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's been a while since I've cut my thumb and bled on it, too, and I've done my bloody thumbprint on it because that's my seal.
Right. All my documents are signed in red.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that's my signature. That's mine. It's a lowercase signature. It's not cap.
Right.
They get so mad at me, like, why is you? Well, it's my fundamental right to sign whatever I want. It's my right. You're not my dictator. You're not my educator.
You're not a public employee, so public employees have privileges.
You're bound by jurisdiction and venue. I'm not.
Right.
Oh, they get angry. Oh, it's been my opportunity to speak with you tonight, Ed. You too, John.
Well, hey, producer, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did we cut you off? Would you like to get back in and bring up your thought, finish your thought? If we were cutting you off, I apologize for being rude.
Well, my wife wants to say, hey, it's an instrument, not a document, because you're not docking your ship at all. So.
Yeah, good point.
But the way it was sounding was this lovely young lady here was saying only basically Redskins, Indians could actually have any of these rights, when you, Ed, have talked over and over again that even a pale skin, white boy, white woman could actually...
Chinese, black, whatever you are, so long as you've been going back that far, is the same thing as Native Indian, yes, and that's been proven in court.
As long as you're fifth generation born on this soil or more, you have complete Constitution rights, but that's only if you file your standing in an affidavit. You claim your standing. If you don't claim your standing, you're basically giving it away to the corporation.
Yeah, you're a blood quantum. You're part of that blood quantum.
Yep.
But once you claim your standing, like my bloodline has, my wife and myself, along with we claiming our children, my spawn, I like to call them. Effectively, we have claimed our standing as lawful bloodline Native Americans.
Right.
Now then, does that mean my wife actually does have Indian blood? But I, being adopted, do not know because files are sealed. But in the affidavit, they have to prove to me I'm not. Otherwise, I will take those rights because nobody's rebutted it yet. So.
That's right.
Right. As long as you're a blood quantum of a tribe, you're actually part of that Constitution that was written with the sovereign nation.
Right.
So, being married to my wife
you
brings me
comprehend
in.
what his point was, Willa, don't you?
What was that?
Did you comprehend his point?
Yeah, I understand very clearly. Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand you, John. Yeah, you and your family. You're part of the blood quantum, the mother line, and which your wife would be part of that mother line of that sovereign, which would be underneath that sovereign blood quorum, and you have that right to petition the government and opt out on these Social Security. I never consent to have any of these things documented on you. Is all written by Britain and the English, and war and English time would never. They set the laws and standards and procedures for us, but we the Native American 5 civilized tribes had our own treaty and our own constitution, and if you're part of that Native one drop of that blood, or you're part of that Native tribe. So you would follow underneath those guidelines of that sovereign nation.
Well, I was
you wouldn't be a citizen.
I was just trying to verify because I was getting a little confused there when you were talking. It sounded like it was just it's just the Indians, just the Navajo, the
no.
No, that's why I was trying to.
You wanted to clarify.
I wanted to clarify because I had a feeling you were intending for like ones like me too, but
yes.
Without actually explicitly saying it, a lot of our listeners might actually sit there and go, well, that doesn't apply to me. Why should I even bother listening? No, it does apply to you if you're 5th generation or more born on this soil. Now, my name is not
Correct.
John. I'm the producer. If you want to call me something, call me Lynx, like the cat.
Right.
Ed messes up.
You're right. As long as you have one blood quorum of a sovereign nation, you're a part of that law and that constitution that was written. No, I wasn't saying just you have to be a whole Native tribe. No, it's one. You could be 1%, and they say 16% to be Native American on these reservations. And
well, they do that because the federal government put in that quorum.
Yes, it's all regulated by United States. Britain and the Vatican is all regulated on the tribes and reservations today.
Well, and the other point is that I have deal with people and that would say, well, my family's been here for 250 years or 100 years, 180 years, but my mom or dad's side, they're an immigrant, and they just got here, and they're only like 3 generations or even 2. And I said, wait a minute, that's what they call half-breeds. That's what they keep yelling and screaming about, because the natives saying, we don't want half-breeds, but they have no choice.
Right. Like Wilma Mankiller, she wasn't full-blooded Native all the way. She was like Scottish and French and Dutch, and she was the chief of the United States. She ran the Cherokee Nation tribe, and she was not even a full-blood quorum. Now I told her, I'm like, how can you get up here and say that you're a chief, which a chief is a male, but I'm a chiefess, not a chief. I'm a chiefess, and she's like, you're trying to argue with me, and I'm like, look, Wilma, you're not even full blood. You're only 1/16th of tribe. I mean, you would follow, even though you are 1/16th, you would still follow underneath that Constitution that was written before the United States Constitution was ever written.
Right.
Here's a question. What about Pocahontas? What about who Trump calls Pocahontas? The one that claimed she had blood and she had none. The genetics prove she had nothing. Period.
I would differentiate that because I'm a blood descendant of Pocahontas.
I apologize right now for the treatment that Lewis and Clark put her through. Because I know
She
the
was
real
my
history.
ancestor
I know the real history on
of
that, not
the.
the comic
One at
book
a time,
Disney.
please.
I wouldn't have to do a poke. Just look at me and you go look at me on my Facebook and tell me, do I look like Elizabeth Warren or do I look like Pocahontas, Rebecca Roth? Even her children, even her son married into my family. That's which we linked that all the way back to the 1600s. Her son married into my family's tribe, our tribe there, and I was shocked whenever I seen that Pocahontas' son was actually blood descendant of mine. But my mother was the great great granddaughter of King Edward Eli Wellborn, 1636, born there in Chesapeake Bay or in Baltimore, Maryland. You can look him up and you trace the bloodline all the way down, and then look at my father's side of the Seminole Nation, which they married into that nation, Pocahontas. And a lot of people don't know that Pocahontas was in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand. They don't know where she actually shipped the ship. Thomas Gaskins was Captain Ship. Thomas Gaskins wrote to the President of the United States and asking him to surrender to for our troops as well as our tribal people. But they ignored Thomas Gaskins, General Thomas Gaskins, or Captain Thomas Gaskins, born 1600s, that wrote the United States George Washington and asking him to stop the rhetoric and the havoc was happening to the tribes here in our land because people were coming here starving to death. And then they brought in smallpox, tuberculosis, germicides. They still today are trying to germicide. They are germiciding us. These vaccinations, these giving these kids, these things that they're doing to our children today, we don't have no control over unless we, the people, stand up and stand our ground.
Go ahead, producer.
No, I was meaning Warren. I wasn't meaning actual Pocahontas, but if you're a descendant from the actual Pocahontas, I do want to give my sorrow because I know the real history, not the Disney version that they teach in schools about what Lewis and Clark did to Pocahontas. So.
She's a blood descendant of my ancestors. I've had people look at me and laugh and joke, and you can see me, and my hair's real thin. I got a small neck. I'm very short. I am not a blood of a Native American. My skin's not white; it's tan. I have tan skin. I don't even have to get out in the sun to get a suntan. I get darker when I get out in the sun. So, but I have looked into my lineage and my ancestry, and underneath the Gaskins, you look the name Gaskins up, and you'll see dates all the way back to 1636. There's Gaskins, Florida, Gaskins, South Carolina, Gaskins, Virginia. Thomas Gaskins of Virginia, he was there, and he was fighting in the Revolutionary War. I'm the great-great-granddaughter of the Revolutionary War. So I know a lot of history about Pocahontas, but you look at me and look at her and I resemble her look. But Pocahontas, the ones they have unanimated her, that's not what she looked like.
Well, yeah, they had to pretty her up more to make it graphically
appealing,
inviting, I should say.
More invitation.
Yeah, well, they do that because they want to keep it inviting, so that way when people look at it, because today, we're basically supposed to be looking like plastic surgery, and if we don't look right, we're supposed to be monitorized.
Right. She was only 14 years old when she was taken out by John Smith and
raped and everything else that happened to her after that. And then when she came to England, she was still raped by everybody.
Yeah, because even her sons, they live a horrendous life. I mean, she was loyal to that country. It took us till 1996 to bring her body back to the United States to have her actually put it in her own burial site where she's lays today. We fought the United States government for many, many, many moons to bring her back because she was a part of the American Native. I have a lot of history on Pocahontas.
Mm-hmm.
But I've checked into my bloodline, my lineage, and I've checked all the records and archives, and I date her all the way back to my family, and it's like, wow, I wasn't aware that until after my father perished in 2004, that I realized that I was blood descendant of hers.
Mhm.
And then my mother just passed a couple years back, and then I realized that my mother in Georgia, Cherokee, Georgia, was a blood descendant of Pocahontas, all the way coming from Baltimore, Maryland. King Edward Eli Wellborn was my great-great-great-grandfather in 1636. And then the Gaskins family was in 1636 in South Carolina, which was the PD tribe, which no longer exists. Well, they exist, they're federally recognized, but you don't see many of them. The Tuatha tribe there in Gaskins, Florida, which is unincorporated, was all married into the Gaskins family. Pocahontas' son did. So I'm like, I didn't know this until I started looking into the archives in Washington, D.C., and up in the Native American, where they have all the information there. I found that out about my last name. So my family been here since the 1600s, before the government was ever a government here. It's my honor, gentlemen.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean by that. I never actually talk to these people and give them any rights.
Right. I don't claim no rights, or I declare any rights.
Mhm.
I'm sovereign, and I'm not underneath the jurisdiction and venue of the United States Constitution. I'm underneath the jurisdiction and venue of the sovereign nation and soil.
Mhm. No, I know that. That's where I've been fighting. Because see, I had to go back and prove my bloodline. Because I used to listen to stories about my bloodline, and my grandfather, Forrest Tucker, in the 1700s, was the one who married the Queen of the Cheyenne Nation in 1770.
Mhm.
And so, and then, that's my other side of my family started at that point, on the soil, but my family was already on the soil at that point, but we don't know if we were native at that point. The only thing I could trace back that I've traced it through cemetery records is going back to Forrest Tucker in the Revolutionary War, and that even crossed with Geronimo.
That's kind of funny you would say that, because there's a Tucker Cemetery in Florida, down there in Pasco County, where the Seminole War was at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of burial ground. There's a lot of unknown graves there, and it's owned. And they came from Alabama and Georgia in that area.
Yeah, that's where my family was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they had their grassroots was at, and they went into that war down there, and they followed in. A lot of American Native fought amongst each other, but the Tucker Cemetery exists down there. It's all back in the woods. You wouldn't even know it was. You drive right past it.
Yeah, because the Tucker Cemetery in Louisiana and Alabama, that's my family.
Right. Well, there you go. There you go, Ed. And you got your ancestors, or possibly were in that war during that time. It was Osceola and Andrew Jackson during that time are there in Tuckertown in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Little cemetery, and Mount Zion. Mount Zion goes all the way back to the Vatican.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I did miss out before my grandmother passed away. Because before my grandmother passed away, she told me she would tell me the family history, but she would never tell anybody else, and including her own children, the truth, because they never gave a shit about anything.
Well, they were in fear. They lived in fear of having our.
Well, yeah, and then my father was trying to convince me. My grandfather was Italian, and my grandmother was going,
Right. The motherline never spoke.
Well, they didn't speak of it because back going through the 20s, 30s, and in that area, you were classified one way or the other, and that was done, and that started coming out from the churches.
Right.
And people don't realize the churches have been dictating this. When I was filed, I would get stuff from the Vatican that they would send the churches out to how to explain different things for your congregation, and I'm like, what the hell is this stuff?
That was like Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull, the missionaries went down there to face the Lakota Nation, and I have his documentary, the book of Sitting Bull, his original book, and he was mentioning how the missionaries from Chicago went down there and tried to convert him into Christianity, and he wanted no part of it. I mean, he was like dead up wrong. No way. You know, it's like, he even in his book, he took books of, and I have the actual book. I could prove it. I mean, it should be in the museum, but I won't give it up till I've had it for ancient years, 50 years or better. But on the inside cover of that, Ed, it's got the Bible verses, and it's got the gold on the outside of the book around the rim of it. It's got the gold on it, and when I took back the actual cover over it, it has Bible verses on there. I'm like, oh my goodness! So he took pages of the Bible and put them on his books.
Well, that's when they started in 1492 trying to convert us into Christianity.
Correct.
And if you look at all the history, the Christians have murdered all the Indians. Correct. The Christians were the part of World War II. If you really look at the Nazi symbols, they're the Christian symbols.
Yes.
You know, it's like, wake up. You know, and then when they had the Christian Crusades, and everybody doesn't read real history, remember the Christian Crusades, because the Christians started realizing they had to clean up their act. So then that way they split up, and that's how we ended up with two structures called Muslim and Christian.
Right.
I don't know how come people can't see real history, and then they want to argue about it instead of doing something to solve the problem so our children are not going through this hell. And everybody's going, well, we need to do that so the kids know this or know that. And I'm like, why do we create living hell when we shouldn't be doing this?
Correct. Correct.
You know, I mean, and the kids are the ones who really punish today, because the kids today don't know shit. They got video games that run their life, and they don't even have a clue what they are.
Correct.
Their bloodline, they don't know their family, because today families don't educate their children about their bloodline or their history.
My grandson's name's Runamuck, and he went to school, and he told his teacher. She said, "What's your name?" He says, "Runamuck." And she said, "What's that?" He says, "My name's Runamuck." And she asked him, "Why you named that?" "Because the courts tried to take me away from my Gigi, and she named me Runamuck because I'm a mockery of the courts."
Mm-hmm.
He told his school teacher his story. He says, "Wait till you meet my Gigi." He called me Gangsta Granny. All my grandkids call me, all my great-grandkids, my grandchildren call me Gigi. My name's Gigi. And they be hollering, "Hey, Gigi." I'm like, oh, my goodness. But my grandson, Runamuck, the court had to give him back because I signed a Declaration and Proclamation on the United States and North America that he is a sovereign child, and the United States doesn't have no rights to him.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give him back or face penalty or penalty and perjury and go to prison. The judge can even be sent to a tribunal court.
Yeah.
He didn't want to fight with me in the tribunal because he was going to lose. So he said, "Bring the baby back." So I named him Runamuck.
Well, that's the one thing that people got to realize. And, you know, it's like I got another friend of mine, I think you know Wesley. You know, I mean, he's been through the court system, but, you know, he's trying to fight. I've known Wesley for years, but it's like you got to file the charges on them.
Yes. Yes.
And people don't realize if you don't file the criminal charges on them, and the state attorney general is the one who is actually supposed to enforce those.
Yes, like Eric Holder. He didn't want to enforce my House bill, my proclamation. My Declaration and Proclamation. He didn't want to enforce that, so what he do? He ended up stepping down. Resigned. Eric Holder, our own United States Attorney General. I mean, he was corrupted. He didn't want to acknowledge that we were actually a sovereign nation. And you're on our soil making dictation up there in the White House.
Yep.
No, you don't have standing rights. And
don't forget, the White House in Washington, D.C. is owned by the Vatican. It's not part of the United States. So is New York City.
And it's only
$43 they have of our money.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's only 10 square miles, not 30 like they're claiming.
Yeah, they're trying to reclaim it because they said 1978 they added the other mileage around it.
Right. Which is bogus.
Well, I know that, but I mean that's what Christians do all the time. They blow things out.
Right.
Well,
if you don't believe my way, you're nobody.
If we're going to be picking on the Christians, I'm going to have to say this nice little meme I heard. I do not know why Christians are waiting for Jesus to come back, because they sure the hell didn't nail him to a boomerang.
Good one.
Well, yeah, well, maybe the cross could be centered as one.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
cute. I never heard that one before.
That was cool.
You know, but see, this is the whole point that we go through, and now correcting the kids and getting this stuff out. Because, see, I mean, it's like since I've been kid, you know, I remember, you know, always questioning things that, you know, when people were talking about growing up. And see, I used to listen to the elders in the family, and then some of the other family members, aunt and uncles, and everybody, don't listen to them. They're crazy. They're crazy. So I would always like to listen to what they had to say because, you know, crazy or not, you know, they're talking to a kid, so they want to make sure they're telling their story, and you can verify it. And my great uncle, I mean, God, he was 100 and something when he died. He used to come out and bring photo albums that they had pictures going back into the late 1800s of different family members who were here in this country, because his family was from Ireland and Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and like I said, he's already been in the country for when he died, 100 years. And so this is the point that, you know, some of the family members, so there's a lot of photographs that got, you know, disappeared in our family bloodline that, you know, we never got. Some of the other kids that my brothers and sisters and stuff never saw when they grew up, because I was the only one that would go up and spend time with them, you know, because everybody used to tell all the other kids, my brothers and sisters, that they were nuts and crazy, so they never went to look. They just took what somebody told them, like most people do today. You know, they put their head in a bucket and walk, and hopefully they don't hit anything.
Right.
You know, you got to go out and look.
Our kids need to be educated about real, true history in America.
Yeah, that's a true
story. They need to learn survival techniques. They need to, instead of all these arcade games and all these things they're funny money in amounts, they need to learn how to survive.
Well, the first thing I tell people, collect rainwater, grow food.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you don't collect rainwater and grow food, you're screwed.
Right.
You know, and that's the one thing that people go, why should I do that? I got the grocery store. Well, didn't people realize when the floods happened in the Midwest, there was no grocery store?
Right.
There was no grocery stores, and they were flying in food and helicoptering food.
Right.
You know, it's like, come on, people, wake up.
Right. When the man came over here during wartime, they were depending on the Native American warriors to go out and get the food, while the women stood and took care of the campfire, the fire. They kept the fire burnt all the time.
Yep.
That was the woman's job. It was never the man. Men never built the circle of the fire circle. It was the woman that kept that fire burning.
That's
but
right.
The man went out and brought the food to the people, and then the people would trade. And during trade time, would come to us and give us gold and silver or whatever they had. Just
ammunition and new knives.
Yep. It's a true story. I mean, I do everything in my love that would they would bring back the true history of Pocahontas and actually indigenous and the Native American tribes. And if you go to these enactments, these war enactments, you don't even see no Native American women and children in there. It's all men in uniforms.
Yep.
American natives on horseback. I'm like, where's the women at? I mean, what they did to all the women? They sold them for sex trade.
Well, it's like the other point everybody keeps going about the American flag. It's not American flag. That's the war flag. It's the same damn flag they fought when they went to, what was that big Wounded Knee?
Yep.
And then there's a couple other big ones that they happened. And it's like, remember, that is not the American flag because it's a cross-reference of the British flag.
Correct.
You know? And if you look at real flag historical history, it even comes through that because that flag, the original design is in downtown London, sewer and water, and everything has to go through sewer and water in London. When I filed on the Vatican on their crimes, I filed in downtown London, sewer and water, and the Roman courts as well, as filed in Rome, and I filed in the British courts in England.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, no, I filed all that with them because I went after Pope Benedict and Pope, what the other dickhead was. I filed on them. I filed literally on their souls.
Right. Right.
You know, their souls are the ones that, see, if people go, oh, it's paper, it's like, no, you don't file for personal gain. You file on their souls.
Correct.
You know, because the other part doesn't exist. They want to believe in religion, their souls exist. So that's the only way to go after them.
Right. Right.
But it's just amazing how people cannot, you know, deal with the original and real structure of things.
Right. Well, we've been programmed, Ed. You know what I'm saying? We've been programmed to where we don't. Even our children are so demised by the TV and demised by these games. They don't have no conscience at all. They've lost. They have no ability to focus or do anything with their parents. They're out of control. They don't listen to their parents. Every one of them's got an illness going on. The parents don't know how to raise the children. They just rather just give them up. Go away, get rid of them. Don't want them no more because they can't deal with it because they're so out of control with their parents. They don't listen to them. They want to talk to them. They talk back to them, cuss them out, fight and argue with them. Man, if we ever done that with our parents, my mama hit us in the head with a Tommy.
We got knocked down the staircase, and even at the staircase, and you get knocked down the staircase, and the parents would laugh at you, going, "You're stupid."
My mom carried a Tommy knocker. She hit us in the head with it. Ooh, that was not good. It had a rock on the end of the stick. She knocked us in the head, clunked us, but we straightened up real quick. Back in the day, you know, that was, and you know, it's something they brought religion back in the schools. I'm like, why would you do that?
They're trying to turn this country into the secondary of England.
Yes, and we're not.
And that's the point I try to explain to people. And they go, we want religion. And I argue with people on the internet going, what do you mean you want religion? Oh, God. I'm going, who's God? What God? Why God? Why is your God better than my God? Because my God is the treaties and the Constitution. My God doesn't come from a book that rapes, robbed, and murders.
Right. Okay, guys.
Right.
All right, so it
is getting late.
Yeah, if you guys want to continue this off the show, that's not a problem. Now we're getting into mainly opinions and everything. I'm just going to say this real quick, and then I'll let Ed close it out. Elizabeth, if you missed out on my epiphany I shared last week about 9/11, that actually explains why a lot of these kids nowadays, the parents don't parent.
Repeat it.
Okay, I'll repeat it.
I didn't get to see that, John.
Okay, my epiphany I had... Yeah, links, please. I'm not John.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. My apologies.
It's all right. It's all right. Effectively, I was during this last 9/11 we had, 2019, I realized that... when the Twin Towers got destroyed, whoever did it, whether you believe it was the Easter Bunny, our own federal side of the government doing a fundraiser, or if you believe it was actually jihadists, or the whoever, you know, it doesn't matter who did it. It actually worked. It destroyed the American. It destroyed the American values because now for one whole generation. From that point on, one whole generation had no strong structure from their parents because their parents were so afraid that they were going to get attacked or they were afraid of terrorists or something like that. The fear actually worked. Now we've got the 7,295 different genders that are out there. Now we've got the Green New Deal. And now we've got the world's going to end in 12 years crap from people who grew up in that generation of unstructured because the parents were too afraid to deal with their children. They were more terrified of any terrorists that were going to come. So effectively, yes.
Alleged terrorists.
No. whoever destroyed those buildings was terrorists, whether it was the damn Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, our own federal government, or anything. That was a terroristic act.
Correct.
So whoever did it was terrorists.
Their own public employees involved in it.
I personally believe that too, but it was whoever did it was terrorist because it was a terroristic act. So, but the thing is, that's why you have most of these kids nowadays. There has been no parentage for the past generation. Now this generation of kids, and leave my video games alone. They're the way to be able to handle my PTSD. Okay. But
give yourself a title.
Yeah, sorry. That was not me admitting to any title at all. But no, I get it. There's no real parenting happening nowadays. I do real parenting with my spawn here because my dad and my mom, adopted they may have been, but they still were real parents, and I got structured that way. But yeah. But with that was my epiphany. Was 9/11 actually succeeded? Not the way that a lot of people think, but it succeeded in striking fear and causing quite a bit of America to become cowards.
Fear and turmoil.
And that was my epiphany.
People know that when 9/11 happened, the German gold was stored underneath that building. And that's part of the thing. They had to destroy that building to cover it from when they stole the gold, because they were supposed to, by the international treaty, return the gold that America took from from Germany back in the war.
Right.
And so that gold was stored there, and most people knew it because that was conversations before the Twin Tower went down. That was talking about after international law came out, and that was 4 years before the building went down. Where the gold was, tracking it down, putting the thing in. And then also, too, there was hundreds of people that testified in the wee hour of the mornings that trucks were kept on going in and out from the basement and nobody knew what was going on. And then how the hell could two planes hit a building like that to crash them when they were built to hold the planes in them? And where's the fuselage? Where's the tail? Where's the engine? There was nothing there. It's like the bomb that blew up, the plane that hit the Pentagon building. Come on, where's the wing? You figured there would have been a wing at least showing up for that.
We need to stop on this because YouTube.
I know. Let's wrap it up.
Because YouTube is starting to do anything that sounds like a conspiracy theory or anything they could consider a hate crime or hate speech. They delete the whole damn channel, and I don't want your channel to be deleted.
I know that. We won't go there. Anyhow, let's go ahead and end it.
Yeah. Ed,
I would
close
like
up.
to say to everybody that we appreciate you joining us tonight. It's all about education, so the kids need to know their future, especially knowing the bloodline. And most of all, may the Creator look over you. Mother Earth bless you. And that is the one thing. Without Mother, we don't have life and food, and without the Creator, we don't exist. So, look at what the truth is. And please don't believe in books. Believe in the heart and soul. And also, too, if you see the dirt and soil and trees, you know it's real. So have a good night, folks.
Night.
Well, thank you for listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. It is Saturday, September 21st, 2019. When Ed actually has somebody to talk to, this could go on for another 4 or 5 hours. That's why I had to cut it short. If any of these guests want to come back and give their views on things in next week or the weeks after, they're more than welcome to. Just remember, keep things polite, keep things in a way, considering it a what's the proper word? When two separate armies sit down and talk, what is that?
Peace.
Treaty talk.
Yeah, I guess peace talks. Hell, I'll even start. I'll start saying, okay, so and so, the peace pipe is yours. Go ahead and speak. Hell, let's do that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I like that one. We can start doing that, passing on the peace pipe is yours. That's a good one.
So,
I love it.
yeah, so do I. And so with that, guys, see you next week, unless Ed decides he's going to kick the bucket during that time. And with that, if that's the case...
Don't even say that. I've already died 13 times. I'm still here.
Yeah, see,
I did talk shows when I was in ICU.
I'm just a visitor.
He's outdone a cat. So come on, guys. You know he's stubborn
My
as hell.
pleasure.
That's a fact, because how many talk shows did I do from the hospital bed when I was in ICU and life support?
I wouldn't call them talk shows. I'd say more of mumble shows. It was more of...
Well, yeah, but at least I was here.
Hey, brothers, I want to tell you I love you both. You know, may the Great Spirit be with you.
May the soil of the earth we tread on bless you.
Yes.
So with that...
My pleasure.
You all have a good night, and I'm going to close the show. Everybody can still stay around and talk, but the show is going to be shutting down.